Well, 2024, to put it mildly, was a disaster for the Chicago Bears. The type of disaster you've grown accustomed to, you've grown used to, because volume check. Bears football! Oh, that felt so good. Right? I mean, that's what it was. It was Bears football personified. Now, the crazy thing about it is the start of the season seemed to suggest that there was some promise and a little bit of potential there. They were 4-2 heading into the bye week, and you're like, hey, they got a lead late on the road against the Washington Commanders. They're about to go 5-2. Like, you might have a little bit of something here. And then reality set in. You had the Hail Maryland, the total face plants against the Cardinals and the Patriots, respectively, the next 2 weeks. Block field goal loss to the Packers, then an overtime loss to the Vikings. And then you had the Thanksgiving joke and embarrassment against the Lions, where Matt Eberflus just sit there and said, if I only had a brain, if I only had a brain, and just let the clock run out, because of course that's what the fuck you do. You know, it was so bad that the worst head coach in Chicago Bears history, over 100 years of history, and they've had plenty of bad head coaches, believe me, but Matt Eberflus is unquestionably the worst one of all. It was so bad, and the Bears organization was so embarrassed that they fired his ass in the season. The first time in organization's history over 100 years that they've ever fired a head coach before the end of the year. That's just wild, and it was justified. He should have never been brought back in 2024 to fucking begin with. Like, I've talked about that ad nauseum, but, you know, all you knew was that it was going to be an active offseason for the Chicago Bears, and if they were going to allow Ryan Poles to keep his job for some inexplicable reason, then he needed to get to fucking work. Well, he certainly did. He went into the head coaching market, and he got the guy. It was the top guy available. It was the right guy for the Bears. They hired Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions, and now he's in the fold, and he's going to be the captain of this ship. And then Ryan Poles finally, after several years of trying to piecemeal it and go on the cheap and on the stupid, decides he's actually going to legitimately address the offensive line. He makes trades for All-Pro Joe Thuney and former Pro Bowl guard Jonah Jackson away from the Rams. He signs Drew Dahlman in free agency, and now all of a sudden the Bears appear to have a competent interior starting line. Who knew that could be a thing that's allowed? Also decided to address the trenches, signed Grady Jarrett to a 3-year contract, gave Dayo Odeyingbo a multi-year deal for whatever reason, but at least trying to address the weaknesses of this team from 2024, which were the trenches on both sides of the ball. And as you went into the NFL draft, the one thing I will say for Ryan Poles is as he addressed the offensive and defensive lines heavily in the offseason via free agency, it freed up the possibilities and the options to go a little more best player available, if you would, in the NFL draft. And it felt like that's kind of what they did, especially with the first 2 picks, drafting Colston Loveland at pick 10 and then Luther Burden in the second, with the first of their 4 second-round picks. Like, they got the work here, right? Was it 3 second-round picks? Whatever. You get my point, though. Like, they went after the offense and they drafted Ozzie Trapillo with one of those other second round picks. So now you're talking about you've added a guy that you think is going to be a high-end tight end. He better be elite if you draft him with the 10th overall pick. You've got a guy in Luther Burden who you're hoping could come in and be a playmaker out of the slot early on and potentially long-term take DJ Moore's job. And then Ozzie Trapillo being able to slide in, maybe at left tackle, maybe at right tackle in the future, but a future starter on the O-line. Then they drafted Shamar Turner and Ruben Hippolyte with sights set on them being future starters. We'll see with Hippolyte, and we'll see, frankly, with Turner as well. Luke Newman and Kyle Monangai were late day 3 picks, guys that you feel can come in and provide depth, and evidenced by the fact that they both made the 53-man roster. So now, after all the movement, the hiring of Ben Johnson, the hiring of Dennis Allen as defensive coordinator, you know, addressing the offensive line, addressing the defensive line, where do the Bears sit? Well, in terms of their strengths, you know, Ben Johnson is their play caller and their leader. is going to be such a significant upgrade to what they had with the Matt Eberflush regime, the Numbskull Nagy regime, the John Fox regime. I could go on, right? So that in and of itself represents a significant upgrade and will be a key strength for the Bears in 2025. And I think you'll see that play out as the season goes along. Their interior offensive line, talking about Tooney, you're talking about Jonah Jackson, you're talking about Drew Dahlman. Like, they'll be competent there, thank God. Then you look at that offense as well, and they've got an even more improved set of skill players. Like, this is a team that has plenty of weapons, in theory at least, on paper at least, in the passing game. It should be a team that gives Caleb Williams a lot of options. There shouldn't be excuses of guys aren't getting open or guys aren't good enough. That should not be a problem here in that passing game. And then you look at the defense, and when they're healthy, Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon are anchors and kind of pillars of that secondary and guys that you can kind of build the defense around. But there's still several question marks here, which isn't exactly great with how active this offseason was. Is there a competent left tackle on the roster? It certainly isn't Braxton Jones. Folks need to stop pretending like he's a good left tackle in the NFL. He's not. I don't give a fuck what grades PFF gives him. I don't give a fuck how much you want him to be. He just isn't. He is a below average NFL starting left tackle, and you damn good and well know it. And you're absolutely insane if you want to sit there and think about giving him $25+ million a year in next offseason to stay as your long-term left tackle. And he's coming off of an injury, and he looked like dog shit in the preseason. So, like, is it going to be him? Is it going to be Benedict? Is it going to be Trapillo? Like, who's going to be the left tackle that protects Caleb Williams' blind side? It's not a good question to have to answer. One of the worst ones, actually, but here we are. Where's the pass rush going to come from? You can say, well, they've added Dio and they've added Grady Jarrett and they have Montez Sweat. Okay, and what's your fucking point? Where's the pass rush going to come from? You sure didn't see it in the preseason. Yeah. Until proven otherwise, this is going to be a team that struggles to get to the quarterback again in 2025. And I think you saw this in the preseason. It was an issue at times last season. I expect it will continue to be. Their coverage is pretty suspect over the middle. Like Edmonds and Edwards as their linebacking duo, not great, right? And then you look at the safeties and you say Brisker, well, he's got to be healthy. Byard's not quite the same player he once was. Like, this is a team that is very vulnerable over the middle in the passing game. But the biggest question mark of all is what's Caleb Williams going to be in year number 2? You can sit there and say, well, he had all those passes that he threw it in a row without any interceptions. And it was one of the longest stretches in NFL history. Yeah, that's true. You're going to say, well, you look at his numbers and they weren't that bad as a rookie, starting every game, playing every game. Yeah, that's true. But a lot of those numbers were amassed in kind of garbage time. You know, he had far too many times where he was kind of scatterbrained in the pocket and too quickly to bail out. Yeah, he took a shit ton of sacks, and a lot of them were on the offensive line for sure, but not all of them were. And then you look at it and you say beyond that, like, his lack of downfield accuracy was a major red flag this past season. And it would be that more than kind of like the scatteredness in the pocket that would lead to Caleb Williams being a bust in the NFL. He has to be better there, just period. He just has to be better. And we're going to find out with more competent coaching, a better offensive line in front of him, is he going to be more comfortable and is he going to be put in better situations than he was last year? Time will tell. But looking ahead to this season for the Bears, they've kind of got a tough schedule on paper, as do all the teams in the NFC North. But I look at some key stretches of this schedule for the Bears, and I look at their first 6 weeks. 5 games within the 6-week stretch. They've got a bye in week 5. But you open up against the Vikings at home on Monday Night Football. Who keeps putting the Bears in fucking prime time? We don't want to be bored to tears with 3+ hours of Bears football late on a Monday night. God damn it. After that, though, they go to Detroit. They host Dallas. They go to the Raiders, bye week. And then they get a chance to go back to Washington and try and get some revenge from last year against the Commanders. You know, it's a critical early stretch there. They've got to come out of that at minimum with a winning record. They've got to at least be 3-2. Got to. 4-1 would be great. 2-3 though, boy, you're starting to bury yourself in a bit of a hole in a really tough division. And then you look at weeks 11 through 14. You've got 3 of those 4 are on the road. 2 of those road games against divisional opponents. You've got at Minnesota, hosting Pittsburgh, and then 2 straight road games against the Eagles and the Packers, respectively. Yeah, that's going to be another critical stretch of schedule where you say they've got to find a way to at least break even if they want to have a shot here. You'd love to see them go 3-1, but they got to break even. And then to close out the season, you got Green Bay at home, at San Francisco, Detroit at home, if that game's going to matter in Week 18 or not. You know, and you look at this Bears team, and the fundamental question is, like, what are reasonable expectations? As much as I loathe to think about having to have reasonable expectations, it is where we fucking are, although that shouldn't be the case. And the fact that you have a general manager in his 4th year and you've already got people trying to sit there and provide air cover saying, well, with all the changes that they made, it's going to take time. No, bullshit. Fuck that. Fuck that. That should not be how this plays out. That should not be what goes down. This should be a team that has eyes set on winning the division, not just sliding into the playoffs as a wild card. Like, if your bar isn't set at least there, let alone trying to get to the Super Bowl, which is where the bar should be, but it's not, because Bears football, it should at least be winning the fucking NFC North. It's just that simple. Now, I don't think they're good enough to do that yet. I think Ben Johnson certainly, improves the Bears and gives them a head coach that could bang with some of the other really good coaches in this division. Kevin O'Connell's, the Matt LaFleur's, and the Dan Campbell's. But, you look at this Bears team, you still have to ask the question of where are the difference makers? Where are the game changers? Where are the game breakers? How much do you really think that Caleb Williams is going to progress from year 1 to year 2? Right? I mean, these fair questions. Like, you look at that defense, and how much do you think that defense is really going to be better or really improve with the lack of apparent pass rush? What's going to happen with the left tackle position? So lots of questions there. I think certainly this Bears team is going to improve because, I mean, you look at as much of a cluster fucking a disaster as 2024 ended up being, like, a couple of things go differently and the Bears could have been a 10-win team. They weren't because Matt Eberflus is a fucking moron. But I think it is totally reasonable, without getting carried away, without getting too optimistic, to say that the Bears should be able to be a 10-win team this year. And frankly, if they're not a 10-win team this year, then there are a lot of questions to answer. Is Caleb Williams going to be a bust? Is Ben Johnson maybe not the right guy? Even though they just gave him a contract extension, are you really sure you want Ryan Poles to be given more years to see the end of that when you see how this shit is being run? Lots of questions. Or we're inevitably just going to be talking about the damn stadium deal with Kevin Warren and such and Goofy George. Yuck, yuck. That may never get done at this point. Gosh. Yeah, but I've got this team going 10-7 and finishing 3rd in the division. If they don't win double-digit games, that is not a good season. I don't care. 9-8. No. Like, this team, with all that they've invested, they've kind of went in now. This is a situation where the Bears should be winning the fucking division. Trying to compete for it. Trying to win the division. I know it's a fucking dogfight. But it's also a dogfight where the Bears are supposed to have gotten better. They got more bark to them and bite to them now. But I think they're a year away still. So I think it's 10-7, 3rd in the NFC North. And you start pointing to 2026 as like what could be then.